There we go. All right. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us. We are going to talk to you a little bit today about, we're going to have a panel discussion talking about thinking AI, know your why before you AI. So my name is Lauren Zeller. I have with me Arthur. We are both board members, and we both had the honor and privilege of working with this fantastic crew here. Working on a white paper. So we will be talking to you today about the process. How did we come together and work on the white paper? What are our core learnings? And then we'll also be sharing with you a little bit about the white paper itself. So with that, let's see. So one of the things that I do as a board member with TCBF is I facilitate collabs, so collaborative opportunities for the community to come together and bring forward their voice as business architects and lend insights to support professional development for the entire community, right? And so with that opportunity, our first collab is actually this coming out of the Summer Summit. The Summer Summit was themed around thinking AI, know your why. And coming out of the Summer Summit, we had this wonderful group of individuals volunteer to lend their voices to creating some content and some insights and knowledge. We also had Selena and Arthur and Erica Nar, who's not able to be with us today, but they've led small groups. So that was the process that we went through. We wouldn't be here today without Selena's leadership, Arthur's leadership, and Erica's leadership. Thanks, Selena. So these individuals, as I mentioned, came forward to lend their expertise with the goal of bringing really a common voice. And we also wanted to make sure that we were creating and fostering an environment of collaboration within the TCBAF community. And so this community, who you see seated here in front of you today, they have created an initial draft that was really resource rich. And we just in transparency, we came forward, this 3 small groups generated 40 pages of content. And so we said, okay, this is a really robust, rich set of information. How can we scale this and make this digestible? And so it was an iterative process, and it was not without challenge. And so ultimately what we have arrived at is actually 2 white papers. So the beginning of a series of white papers. The initial part 1 is a foundational white paper. And so we'll dive into that a little bit more as we get into the panel discussion segment of our discussion today. And then we also have a second part of the white paper, which is focused on practical use cases and things of that nature. So those resources are now available to you all. They are published out on the TCBAF website, and they're available for you to digest. And again, this is a community-created set of assets, and so we're just incredibly grateful to this group who is here today representing the work that they have contributed to TCBAF. So the initial draft that we've released on the website, the initial drafts of the 2 white papers, these are really beta level, and we imagine that there will be additional versions that will come forth in the coming days and weeks. So we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to kind of give you a little bit of insight of what are the origins, how did we come to this point, who are the key collaborators and things like that. So I would invite you all to kind of keep in mind as you're listening to sessions throughout this summit that we're currently in, keep in mind ideas that you might have for additional collab opportunities, and I would love to connect with you and sorry, shouldn't touch my mic. I would love to hear from you and collaborate and think about other ideas for future white papers that we could potentially bring forward, or other, if not a white paper, maybe some other form of content, right? That is community created asset and of value to our entire architecture community. So with that, I'm going to turn this conversation over to Terry Gamrat at this point. Terry is going to give us an overview of the Thinking AI white paper.
Thanks, Lauren. First of all, we got to thank everybody here that contributed, because it was not an easy task, especially with this many bright minds in the same room, virtual room. But as Lauren mentioned, this was really driven out of the fact that TCBAF is not just about putting on great sessions and great conversations. It's like, what are some resources we can reference and leverage as a community to make our lives easier? And how do we make that collective wisdom available where people can share their voice, share their experiences, so we can all improve and better the practice for the world that we live in? And so, as Lauren mentioned, we had several different sets of context in the initial draft of the paper. Some of it foundational, some of it, thinking about sustainability, security, impact on people. Some of it technical. How do we manage AI within the context of our business? And then some of it was like, how do we better ourselves as business architects through leveraging AI to improve our role? And so the first one really focuses on the foundation, right? So it's aimed at practitioners, strategy makers, executives, to better understand how we can adopt and govern AI. Other areas that it falls into is highlighting how business architecture is essential for the success of AI. How do we focus on the value, the outcomes, and how do we structure it in a way for the organization to be successful? So it's not just about the tech, right? In fact, I love the phrase that Selena used in a previous. It's not about human in the loop; it's about AI in the loop, right? So how do we make sure we've got AI in the loop appropriately, but recognizing that it's also influencing humans and everything that they do, right? We know it's a systemic disruptor. What we automate today discovers issues, challenges, and problems and opportunities for the future, right? So how do we manage that disruption? But also, as business architects, we have to be critical stewards of this, right? So how are we managing the feedback? How do you manage the drift and hallucination and life cycling of everything that makes it practical, so that at the end of the result, it's not about the success of AI, it's about the outcome. It's about the business outcome, the value that you're driving, and identifying future opportunities for value, right? That you may not be focused on today, but will become visible as you become successful. So that's what the first paper is about. The second one, as Lauren mentioned, we'll get more into the practical application of it within business architecture. So please take a read. Please provide feedback, because it's, as we said, this should be a working resource for us all. It's not a line in the sand, because we know things are changing just too incredibly fast. So
Thank you, Terry. With that, I think Arthur has some questions.
Yeah, so obviously the process of writing the paper was fantastic because it was collaborative, and that's really what AI is, right? It's being able to organize all the information that we have and then making it available and operationalize it. I mean, that's truly what AI is taking the past and projecting it into the future, right? So coming together to work with people to figure out what is meaningful, and in their business. That's why we wanted a real diverse group of professionals using AI in different spaces. Would you mind just each kind of one by one sharing a little bit about yourself, name, where you work, that type of thing, so we can get an idea of who's here and the perspective from which you joined this group?
Sure. My name is Eric DeCluet. I've got a long history in architecture, business architecture, and enterprise, and also simulation. One of the interesting quotes about generative AI is, "It's not magic, it's math." I've been doing that math for about 30 years. In 2017, when generative AI exploded, and particularly its impact in NLP, natural language processing, I shortly thereafter realized, oh boy, a lot of disruption. There's a lot of miscommunication and misidentification of what's happened. But it also represents a lot of possibility for humanity. That then motivated me to do the best that I can to make sure that we people own AI before AI owns us. And that is the motivation that brought me to this team to create these white papers.
Cool, thank you.
Terry Gamrod, I'm with Campbell's. What really intrigued me about this is I'm a practitioner, right? So I'm not the big idea guy, but I'll increment on the ideas that I find. And so I had written a position paper in my former life before joining Campbell's in a collaborative effort. And I'm like, I've got some experience. Maybe I could bring that to the table. What I discovered is the experience was not only helping author the paper, but applying it practically as we were writing the paper in the real world work that I was doing. And so for me, this wasn't just about having something out there, but having something that I could test and use and leverage, because if you can't, then what's the point, right? So as my contribution isn't just about, hey, what can we put in from a real world example standpoint? How am I testing it in everything that I'm doing day to day to show that these guidelines and frameworks and thought processes really do work? So.
Hey, this is Himanshu Kashiwar. I work with HCL Tech and have been in the industry since 20 plus years. Started my career like a developer, but slowly grown myself into the business architecture space. Now, my motivation to be part of this Elite group was to understand where this is taking us to begin with. And I was fortunate enough to actually also collaborate with some of the other folks in my organization. So I work in an investment management space. So what happens over there is like, there's this huge shift of a focus on data quality and all these things because we want to get our data prepared for the next set of the artificial intelligence. And we were not there yet. So I wanted to collaborate with the other folks to see what the other organizations are also doing in this space, to understand what can we do better, or how can we see these things fall through in the next couple of years for any organization for that matter. This experience has been very enriching for me. Personally, I got to work with Selena, Eric. We had a lot of discussions about all these things, and this has been a best learning experience that I had. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you for being a part of it.
Michelle Stracy, and my background, I think, is a little bit non-traditional when it comes to those here at the summit. My background is finance, accounting, some IT. I'm a wannabe, architect for sure. And it's just one of those where, based upon everything I've been seeing with regards to the advancement of technology, how do we utilize that to enable us as humans and at the same time process and data? And so over the last year, I've been learning more about AI, learning that, hey, we've had AI around for a long time. There's a lot of, I would say, misunderstandings in regards to what AI is and what AI is not. So the more that I learned, the more that I'm seeing that there is a lot of, I would say, misunderstandings. And so being able to hang out with these brilliant people, wearing my shades because they're pretty bright. Okay, that was kind of silly. No. But just being able to co-write a white paper and bringing in more of that, I would say, lens from where I am at. That was really where I enjoyed and learned and continue to learn.
Yeah, no, so hopefully this communicates the breadth and the depth of the experience on this group. Lots of people coming together. We also had Miss Selena Evans kind of herding cats, getting everyone to get their papers in so she could help us kind of figure out how we're going to put this all together, because with so many voices, you need a way to kind of streamline it. So it was a collaborative effort. It went really well, but there were challenges. There are a lot of lessons learned. If you wouldn't mind just sharing maybe one aha moment, or if you could speak to someone in this group who might be asked in a professional setting, we need you to write a white paper, something that you would want to kind of share with this group that maybe they could learn from. What's one thing that you would do differently, an aha, a surprise, something to look out for if you're asked to do this again?
I think it's one of those. My aha was not making assumptions. Just because it's constantly learning, but really where and how do we approach this? Because I think the more that we talk, it was kind of like, hey, there is opportunity for education. There is more opportunity to kind of like understand what it is that we're trying to do. But at the same time, where people, what's the fear? What's the fear around AI? And then how do we really bring that to the table and talk about it?
Cool. Thank you. Thank you.
Very nicely put. My aha moment came when I started interacting with Eric on some of the topics, and we had a disagreement. And then I learned that, okay, it's not always one view that helps all. We need to actually see it to the other lens as well. So, that was one of my, memories about this paper.
We'll just go down the line then.
Yeah.
Jokingly, the first one, change control. When you have this many collaborators, you have to have a little bit more rigor around change control. But that being said, I think you hit on it well. Perspective, right? There isn't a right answer in what we're putting together, and it's changing too quick to pretend that there should be a right answer. And if you didn't come in with eyes wide open and ears even wider open, then you were going to miss potentially something very major and very thematic to what we were trying to deliver. And with this many people and this amount of brain trust, you have to be open to that. And so even if you thought you knew what you knew, you were still barely scratching the surface. And it requires a collective to be able to address a topic of this complexity.
And from my perspective, well, I also teach AI and prompt engineering at the U. And one of my critical challenges there, my teaching style is I want you student to really lead and bring the class along in the subject matter that we have to discuss. And in that, it's key to get the backgrounds of the students, the backgrounds of the collaborators in front of everyone, so that now when I speak to Himanshu, I can bring in that conversation the background that I know of him, and it makes it much easier for him to understand what I'm talking about. So I think that's the big lesson for future collaborations is announce who you are, show your cape, and have everyone do the same so that we can now better translate into one another's background.
Yeah, love it. Thank you guys so much. That's so good. Lauren, I know we got some questions. Would you mind?
Yeah, we have questions around sort of the content of the white paper. So thank you so much for sharing your experience of as contributors and essential voices for the white papers. Curious to chat with you a little bit about, the white paper presents business architects as key and essential to really driving responsible AI adoption through intentional systems design. And so I would love to hear, I'd love to hear a perspective. What does that look like when a business architect steps forward to help drive out responsible adoption of AI?
I can go first. So business architects are in this unique position in the organizations. They bring in the strategic value, they understand the technology, and they understand the business. So we are in a unique position here to actually serve the companies to think how AI adoption can happen for your organization. The reason for that has been we have been bridging the gaps of technology and business ever since it existed. So that makes us in this unique position to make sure that the organization is going in the right direction and not getting caught into the bad weeds of only technology, or you're losing perspective on creating something cool which is not useful. So our responsibility to the organization is to make sure that we educate our senior executives about what can be or what should not be, and what should not be, or like our paper says, thinking why before AI. So our responsibility is to make sure that our organizations actually adapt to AI in a right manner, rather than just showing this like a marketing piece and say that we are AI compliant, but that will not actually serve the right purpose, how this powerful technology can actually do to your organization. So that's the main important thing that a business architects has to bring in. And that's our responsibility actually. As we have been saying, we are more responsible to make sure that the business goals are achieved through technology and not the other way around. So, that's one of the things. Anybody else have any other ideas or thoughts? Eric, you agree?
I totally agree. And so well, I've been in situations where, for example, and this is not even generative AI, right? It's what I call legacy AI. So we want to do some forecasting about customer behavior. And the sales team has its own perspective of what customers do and what they want. And then the fulfillment side has, in a lot of cases, a totally different perspective of what customers want, need, and their levels of satisfaction. Well, it tends to be business architecture that is understanding of the fact that, yeah, those two groups have the ability to forecast something about our customers, but rarely do they talk to one another. So now, when for AI purposes or for any other purposes, we need to re-examine forecasting about our customers. BA is definitely the key focal point that can bridge the gap of what data do we have about customers, what forecasting capabilities have we already evolved, and how those capabilities can expedite the accomplishing the new target that we have at hand.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think we will talk a little bit about the paper also calls practitioners to take action by mapping out current state, modeling for target state, and using inquiry as a key component for thoughtful design, designing for coherence. I would love to hear your perspective on, what is one practical step that a summit attendee or a business architect practitioner could take forward into their work next week as they leave the summit?
I would love to take this one. And it was, I was able to go through. So it's like, I've got a few notes here because otherwise it was almost another white paper. No. But I would say one practical step that you all can probably do next week is just to map out a single value stream and ask where AI can actually help. And not just, again, where it's fashionable, because I think that's the whole thing too, is like, what's the hype? It's like where really we can, practical from. So again, just pick that one value stream that really matters to your organization. So such as onboarding, forecasting, grant management, and really map it at a high level. Then identify where are the decisions slowing down? Where does quality break trust? And then where are people spending a lot of time reconciling versus making decisions? And only after that should you be really asking, should AI augment this decision, automate part of it, or just stay the heck out of it? And then the white paper really reminds us that AI amplifies whatever system we actually put it into. If the value stream is fragmented or unclear, AI is really going to magnify that dysfunction instead of delivering value. This step really forces clarity before automation, and that's really where responsible AI starts. The part that I really wanted to say is, and again, if you think about it, none of this really, in regards to the suggestion, requires a new tool, a new vendor, or budget. It just really requires clarity. And clarity is, the actual architect's superpower when it comes to AI accelerated world.
Thank you,
Make up
Michelle.
T-shirts with that, but I ran out of time. Sorry.
Thanks, Michelle. Would anyone else like to think about that question? Yeah.
Wholeheartedly agree. What I would say is that while you're also identifying value, identify your dependencies. You're gonna discover that there are upstream, downstream dependencies that your business isn't even thinking about as you start modeling out even just that one value stream. And so when they pick that one thing, they're not going to understand how it's disrupting upstream and downstream events within that. Like you talked about forecasting, sales is going to forecast one way, whereas your supply chain is going to forecast a different way. So make sure that as you're doing that, think about those dependencies, because those will be critical to the success or the demise of whatever you pursue. So.
And one more thing, particularly as business architects, the value of socialization. We often, collect all of these facts and they stay private to our team. But the true value that architecture delivers, that business architecture or enterprise, is allowing others within the enterprise to see what's going on. Oftentimes, they will help you perfect your picture from their perspective. So the value of visualization and communication, I think, can't be understated.
I think, Arthur, do you want to?
I love that comment.
Oh, it's okay.
That is,
So another key area that's addressed with our white paper is really around AI readiness as being, there's an importance in order to have a holistic view of, as we're thinking about the solution design, it's really important to have AI readiness. And so to do those, there's this opportunity to do technical assessments. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on what cultural mind shifts might need to take place in an organization in order to truly benefit from AI. So, Michelle, I know you talked about the importance of clarity and accountability, but yeah.
Yeah. So again, what I really liked in regards to what the white paper does is that we challenge pretty much a common assumption, where that AI success really comes from experimentation alone. I get it. Pilots pilots do matter. Yet without the architectural discipline, they become innovation theater. The real shift is really taking that combination of creativity and coherence together. And again, AI readiness isn't about technical maturity. It's about organizational maturity, that the culture has to be ready to think systematically before it can actually benefit from a thinking machine.
No, that is very well stated. Also kind of thinking into the future, if we look ahead, everything that we're doing is preparing us for the next stage. Whether you think about model development, it was just a few years ago that people are like, what's ChatGPT? And now we have commercials for ChatGPT. So we always need to be thinking about, where is this technology going? Looking ahead 2 to 3 years, what do you believe will be the biggest differentiator between organizations that thrive with AI and those that struggle to adopt even the simplest implementations?
We are clearly at a juncture where AI is going to be a distinguishing factor between the organizations. I think the organizations which are going to operationalize AI at scale will be at advantage in few years to come. And obviously, the thriving organizations will struggle with that aspect alone. Um, and that opens up an opportunity for organizations to start thinking about how do we have AI infrastructure available and ready? So are we ready for it? That's the first question they need to ask themselves. And if not, that's the first area they should be, focusing on to make sure that they are ready operationally to scale up to any AI challenges that are going to come their way. So that's the first biggest distinguishing factor between the organizations that's going to happen, according to my opinion. Um, the second thing that the organizations which are going to adapt well to the whole AI wave would have thought through very carefully about how AI governance models are going to look like. And the organizations which are going to have a mature model to adapt to the newer challenges, or they have a right governing process, would be at a big advantage. And I'm thinking like, if those organizations who are not focusing on that area are going to struggle in those areas in 2 to 3 years, and then they'll have to revisit, what they are doing right now. Okay, so those are the two key areas. The third aspect that the companies are going to be heavily investing on as of today is the AI literacy and upskilling. We don't want to replace everyone, but we want to make everybody an AI user so that we can make them more efficient about what they do as an organization, right? So that's where AI is going to touch at every level, right? From the entry level till the highest level, AI has something to offer, right? So the organizations who are upskilling their resources in this space will have a tremendous advantage, according to me, in few years to come. So these are the few areas I think are very important for anybody to be, available. And part of the reason why this paper is so important now for anybody and everybody to read is to understand how they can actually start thinking in that direction if they have not already. I know many organizations are thinking right now, but the prioritization is where even the architects can help, because many organizations are in all over the place right now, right? So our job is to actually make sure that they are future ready with these things.
No, very well said. We've seen just in the past few days, I think it's ChatGPT Health or something was released. And it's, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the state of Utah now it's being used to, as a trial, to prescribe medications.
Yeah.
That does, I know, not saying it's good or bad, we're just saying it is. But that doesn't happen without so much work happening on the back end. And the first thing they probably went to with the FDA or the regulatory bodies is we have compliance in place. We know what we're doing. It's something that's traceable, because AI is a black box. You have to remove that black box. So how do you do that? You do that with proactive compliance. You do that by engaging people like Selena to say, we're trying to move this business into a new space. We need to know from a legal standpoint, what do we need to have in place? Or we cannot leverage the future. And the future will be leveraged against us. So
I think we can look in the past to see the answer to the question, right? Because non-generative AI has already shown us what it does, how it revolutionizes industry. There's not a taxi driver that can't live without the prediction of the best path to get me to my destination. There's not a logistics company that exists that can deliver a package cost effectively without forecasting of what's the best path to take at what time of the day, et cetera. So the disruption is obvious. The question is, how do we, and define the boundary of your we wherever you want it. There are two things. I need to use AI to my advantage, but also not sacrifice or put myself at more risk. Potential risks. For sure, in healthcare, and well, we've already seen AI, OpenAI is being sued for the death of a teenager who was coached by ChatGPT to kill themselves. What we're seeing in this country is just, at best, an inertia against legislating what AI's boundaries should be. And I think that puts us all at risk because one of those boundaries is your own intellectual property. So now, if you've got a process patent and you implement that process patent in ChatGPT, you've just violated your own patent. Until we have a better ability to forecast what our environment is, we need to be quite cautious in joining the gold rush to generative AI.
Well, absolutely well said. And I think it was the great philosopher Yoda who said, the future is always in motion. So it's very difficult to identify.
Actually, he said, in motion is always.
I can't dance on my feet like that. Simple math. So thank you, sir.
Great. Well, thank you for each one of you for sharing. And we'd like to turn it now to an open forum. And there's an opportunity for our audience members to ask any questions of our panelists, whether those questions might be around what was your experience working on the white paper collaboratively with this community, or if you have a question specific to the content of the white paper itself. Yes, Oliver.
Thanks. I had the privilege of having a sneak peek of some of the drafting. Thanks, Selena. And I had a quick look at the paper you released, and there's a line that stands out for me, which is you shouldn't use generative AI, specifically, I think you say LLMs, on their own. They need an architecture wrapped around them, or words to that effect. It's a line along those lines. And I just wanted to sort of echo that. And that's something that we, in some of our work, picked up in 2023, because we were piloting some stuff. And we quickly came to the conclusion that this LLM-centric kind of architectural approach is quite dangerous unless you're doing something quite trivial, unregulated, throwaway, very limited risk of failure, right? So I just wanted to kind of echo that I really agree with that line in your paper, and I'd love to sort of bring some of my work and see if we can integrate it into the TCBAF work, if that's of interest. Well, maybe I've not read it properly, but that might be why it resonated so well.
We need a revision. Next question right here.
Sir, the teacher, I was really excited when you talked about inertia against governance. I think this is like the #1 issue facing us now. I also set up when you talked about Gen AI being central to human experience, and then you gave 2 graph traversal problems. What am I missing?
Say that again.
You talked about Gen AI, and maybe I misunderstood, being central to human experience with the taxi driver, the logistics, and you gave 2 graph traversal problems. I'm missing something.
Pre-generative AI.
I see.
So it's the forecasting, right? So most forecasting these days is done. Give me the data, the history, and let me find the common pattern that leads to success out of that history. So that's AI, a non-generative AI being applied to forecasting.
Thanks.
Hi, great discussions. Thanks for all the insights. My question is related to, like, we talked about that AI, we have to be, if we don't assess it properly, we may amplify the issues that might be existing. There is no field or no area in the business today where you can dissociate yourself from data and data-driven decisions in AI. So there is no preemptive way of saying there is a value stream defined to an AI to choose AI, because if you wait for that, you're going to be behind the curve and not be AI. So I want to kind of understand a little better when you talked about waiting for defining a value stream, because there is no application today. Even a Google search has some kind of a AI. You can do anything today, marketing, you can do shopping. There is nothing that is not data-driven or AI defined.
Very true. And what I'll say to that is, we talk about this a lot at my company, is that Copilot, Gemini, Perplexity, these things are all out there for people to leverage day to day, right? And individual use and personal efficiency and things like that are all going to be realized from that, and even in simple workflow automation and what they're doing. You're right, that can't be ignored. But AI isn't just an efficiency play. It's not just an individual contributor play. So when we want to look at how we're driving value around our adoption of AI, we have to have a bigger view of it than just what we would get from an individual use through some form of prompt, right? And so I didn't go out and draft a value stream around brand management. I discovered it through work that the business was already doing. We highlighted all of the business capabilities that were aligned with stages, and we showed them, okay, yeah, you want to look at digital twins, you want to look at synthetic audiences, you want to look at insight generation. Okay, great. Why? Where are those levers going to help you? What other dependencies do you have? Whether it's in the data that you need, the data that you have available, the data you need to subscribe to, whatever that may be. What's that quality of the data? And is pulling that lever really going to shorten whatever thing that you're trying to shorten to create value versus just drive efficiency? And so, yes, it's going to happen. It's coexisting as far as individuals and using things like we use Copilot. So, people are using it every day. But where we want to make focused investment, focused energy around that, people can pick the idea of synthetic audience and say, I want that, but they don't know what they're going to do with it. What value, what outcome are you trying to achieve? What are the dangers of using a synthetic audience, right? And so by framing that within a specific stage of value, within the capabilities that surround that, and then thinking about how that intersects with other parts of value, other business capabilities, other technical dependencies, we can say, okay, you know what, we're ready to make an investment here. We're not going to make these 3 investments over there. The other thing that it's doing is it's allowing us to fail faster. So where we're making investments in AI within the context of the same value stream, when we start seeing one degrade in value, realizing we're not going to recognize it, that religion, that ownership, that tied to, well, we need to see this thing through, starts to go away because we still have a couple others in that same area that we can refocus our learnings and our energy on, and we can abandon those things that we know we're just not going to recognize today. So agree that those things are going to happen, but by leveraging business architecture and tools, we can reframe the conversation and help drive those bigger value prioritization conversations and actually look at what outcomes can better serve the business beyond efficiency plays. Right.
Also, I think the response is going to be the next stream where we can leverage, because like what happened to cybersecurity when cloud came around, anything is going to happen with responsible AI will be the thing to actually leverage, especially at the organization level and not at the user level.
I got to be next before Steve. So I came in a little late, but I hope that everyone understood the prompt for this team to put these thoughts together in white papers. The prompt was, we got a point of view from a TCBF community standpoint. So our community is going to come together from wherever they are, whatever their experience, whatever their knowledge level, anything they bring to the table. And we're going to start with some experiments around creating assets. We're going to create content assets. We've got a few of those. I said that earlier today, but this is what we're going to be doing. I mean, I am so impressed with the community. This is the community. You are all the community. We can together learn and respond to a prompt. What we said, my whole job in helping to frame this was that we can't address all of AI, nor would we want to. I mean, it's a ridiculously high velocity space, and there's so much here. What we need to do is capture our point of view from a point in time, which was a conference we had in June, what was shared from 3 aspects, and you'll see what they are when you look at the paper and hearing from these guys. And we're going to capture that. And then we're going to do more papers. And we're going to talk, hit different topics and different scope. And the fact that we have Oliver suggesting that he's going to help and contribute, fantastic. I hope that we can count on everyone to do that. The TCBF isn't about AI, but we have community perspective on big, hard topics. And we believe, as you might imagine, the business architecture is pretty important to this topic. So we're going to say something about it. So watching this group, and I love that Mick says she's not really an architect, but Mick was a BRM, a total business architect hiding as a BRM when I worked with her. And I mean, the thank you all, and all of you, brilliant comments. And the exciting thing is they learned from this. They had a great experience, even though, frankly, challenging, because if you ever did a group project in high school, it's way harder than doing an individual project. This is a group project. We started out, we got to like 60 pages. We contracted, we tried to do it in teams. We had to pull the voice back together. It was, you know how this goes. And they came up with something. Now we're posting that, we've published it. And we're going to do probably one more, maybe 2, but one more round of revisions. And then we'll mark it done. And then we'll move on to the next topics. And I hope you bring those topics forward and we create some groups to address those, because we want to keep doing this all the time. I'd like to have several of these running all the time, and just know it's going to be hard and you got to lead your way through it. So we're going to clap for them in a minute after Steve asked this question, but I just had to, it's not a question. The question would be, how much fun did you have? But you've already kind of answered why you did this. And then you did get something out of it, which is really, really important. The why you did it for me is because it's awesome. And we want to do these things. We want TCBF to have a point of view that's known and referenceable. So anyway, there you go. Thank you.
I like your comment about presentation and documentation, not documentation for the point of documentation, but being a teacher, I think this helps you, being a preacher, a teacher, an evangelist, a student, right? And I think the importance and the type of resources we want, especially down to development, are people that can communicate now and use AI to help them communicate. And, whenever we have these disruptive technologies, people want to own it. So there's a central thing that wants to own AI. Instead of organic, but requiring, governance comes from documentation and sharing and having that healthy share. And I think that comes into a lot of, well, you present, how you think, and that was just a very intriguing comment for me. Does that make sense to you? Does that resonate? Is that what you're thinking?
Not just resonate, but this idea of sharing is one of the key failures in AI projects these days. Well, here's an analogy. I got a brand new employee who happens to be the smartest person in the world, right? They're coming to work for me. If I don't make the information available to that person for them to do their job, they will fail. They'll probably leave before I even notice it, right? So now if that new employee, and I hate this anthropomorphization of technology, but AI can be thought of in that same light, right? Like a new employee. I agree with you. But if I don't make the information, the real intelligence available in my enterprise to this artificial intelligence, it will fail. And a lot of enterprise cultures are not about sharing data. There are too many silos that inhibit this ability. So that's one of the key issues that everyone has to deal with. If you want to be successful with even legacy AI, you have to learn how to share the data. But even more so with generative AI, if you've got this culture of keeping it under your vest, you are going to fail. The governance of it is always a challenge, correct? But it's like the baby in the bathwater, right? You can't throw out the answer can't be, well, just give no one access to it. And by the way, evangelists, there's some interesting. There's a company called Denodo, and I hate being a commercial for Denodo, but they're all about just that, preparing your data governance for AI. One of the key roles that I've seen them implement is an evangelist. They actually have corporate evangelists that go out and preach to their customers. So it's not just an internal role, it's an external role. And it's all about socializing the facts of what they've accomplished.
So I just, sorry. I just want to thank everybody who participated in this project. It was an honor. It was a pleasure. I learned from everybody. Eric and I had like some great debates that really, it pressure tested a lot of thinking and helped me think things through. And that was one of the best things about the paper, is that it made us kind of commit to directionally what we thought about things. And it made us kind of think through different aspects of things that we wouldn't have otherwise, and we wouldn't have taken the time to otherwise. So it was a really valuable educational experience, and it has a lot of meaning to it. So I encourage other people to do that as well. Having TCBAF as a place to publish, as a place to share your ideas with other people and get feedback from, like, that's where the magic is. So yeah, just wanted to encourage everyone else to participate in this as well, and thank everyone so much for all your work.
Thank you so much.
Great. So the last piece that I would like to share is just kind of reiterate what Linda said, which is, join a collab. There is a link out on the tcbaf.org website where you can join a collab, and we would love to have you join us and grow your practice. So with that, Arthur, any final closing?
No, just want to say again, thank you to everyone participating in the paper. Thank you to all for coming in here and hearing from these fantastic panelists who committed so much of their time, effort, and energy to building something and creating something that we can all benefit from. You know, AI, if you think about it, if you think 20, 30 years ago, if someone had said the internet is going to be this, that, or the other thing, number one, no one was right, because no one could have possibly predicted that the internet would turn into this incredible engine for all commerce all over the world, right? So nobody knows, because the future is always in motion. I think if there's one thing I would say is AI is not about the technology, it's about preparing yourself to remain fluid as things change, being able to come alongside the right way, because AI is not a static thing. It will continue to develop much like the internet does. So thank you for coming along on this first iteration. We look forward to more in the future. Thank you.